A man recently shared a hilariously chaotic yet frustrating story about what happened when he left his wife alone for 3 weeks while on a work trip to Germany. Before he left, his 39-year-old wife assured him she'd be fine on her own. She planned to water the plants and binge some Netflix. He figured everything would be okay. After all, she's an adult. What could possibly go wrong? Turns out, a lot. By day 2, things had already started to unravel. She decided to try baking sourdough bread from scratch after watching a YouTube video. Unfortunately, she mistook Epsom salt for yeast. The result? A rock-hard loaf that cracked their marble kitchen counter. She proudly named it Crumbzilla and displayed it like some kind of trophy. That was just the beginning. Next, she went on an all-raw vegan kick, ordering 19 pounds of produce from a questionable organic website. Half the fruits and veggies arrived moldy. The other half, she juiced them. And that's all she consumed for an entire week. No solid food, just juice. She became so dizzy from the liquid-only diet that she mistook the laundry hamper for the fridge and stored all their frozen meals in it. Unsurprisingly, they melted into a sad mess. After that disaster, she ditched the juice cleanse and began balancing her diet with Pop-Tarts and spoonfuls of peanut butter. Her reasoning? Balance. Nutrition-wise, it was a complete crash landing. As her eating habits spiraled, so did her personal hygiene. She stopped wearing actual clothes and just lived in a single bathrobe, the same one every day. By the second week, it was more soup stain than fabric. Even the family dog wouldn't go near her. She also decided to take up knitting to calm her stomach. She wasn't knitting much of anything useful, but was proudly working on a half-finished scarf when her husband came home. At that point, she was wandering around the house with a jar of pickles in one hand and yarn in the other. And to top it all off, she seriously claimed she had become a kombucha, whispering it in her sleep while burping. When the husband finally got home, the house reeked of fermented ginger, and the dog had moved his bed into the bathroom and refused to make eye contact with anyone. Overwhelmed, the man grabbed his keys and left for coffee. The dog followed him. Both needed a break from the smells, the stress, and the madness. Now, sitting in a cafe with a traumatized schnauzer and an espresso in hand, he reflects on the chaos of the past 3 weeks and jokes that honestly, it would have been simpler if she had just cheated. By the time the man returned from his 3-week work trip, nothing could have prepared him for the scene waiting at home. He walked through the front door expecting a warm welcome, maybe some quiet relief to be back in his own space. Instead, he stepped into what he could only describe as a bizarre, fermented fever dream. The house was in total disarray. The air smelled like a strange mix of old ginger, vinegar, and something vaguely sour. The kitchen counter was still cracked from her Crumbzilla sourdough mishap. Juice pulp was stuck to random surfaces. Empty Pop-Tart wrappers littered the living room. And everywhere there were little bits of yarn, evidence of her new knitting hobby that seemed more like a coping mechanism than a craft project. His wife greeted him with a wild look in her eyes, wearing the same soup-stained bathrobe she'd apparently been living in for days, if not weeks. One hand clutched a jar of pickles, the other a half-knitted scarf. Her hair looked like it had made a quiet deal with gravity to give up. She hugged him enthusiastically, robe flapping open, completely unaware of how deeply unhinged the whole scene felt. Even the dog, who used to be glued to her side, now looked like he'd seen things no creature should have to witness. He had moved his bed into the bathroom, his own version of a fallout shelter, and wouldn't even make eye contact. When the man left for coffee, the next morning, just to get some air, the dog followed him like a fellow survivor in need of fresh oxygen. Things hit a new level of strange when, later that morning, he woke up to his wife whispering in her sleep, "I think I'm a kombucha now," followed by a gentle burp. That was it. That was the moment it all crystallized. His wife, once a level-headed adult, had somehow evolved or devolved into a quirky, slightly pickled version of herself, half woman, half fermentation experiment. Sitting in a local cafe with his espresso and a thousand-yard stare, he joked to himself that cheating would have been the easier betrayal to come home to. Infidelity, at least, follows a script. It's dramatic, messy, but familiar. But this was psychological avant-garde performance art with moldy vegetables and probiotic delusions. He didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or check if kombucha had a support group. In the end, he wasn't mad, just bewildered. What started as a simple work trip turned into the unraveling of domestic normalcy. His wife hadn't cheated, but she had broken reality a little, and maybe her mind, and definitely the fridge system. Still, a small part of him admired her commitment. It takes a special kind of spirit to survive 3 weeks alone and come out the other side convinced you've become a fermented tea. After a long shower, 2 strong cups of coffee, and a deep breath, he sat down with his wife. They laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. She admitted things got a little weird while he was gone, and he admitted he probably took for granted how much she anchors their life together. They decided to toss the bathrobe, finally, deep clean the house, and give the dog some much-needed cuddles. She promised to take it slow on the kombucha and maybe stick to regular bread recipes. Together, they turned Crumbzilla into a garden decoration, a reminder that chaos can be hilarious in hindsight. By the end of the weekend, the house smelled like fresh brewed coffee and cinnamon candles. The freezer was restocked, the robe replaced with actual clothes, and the dog was back in his usual spot on the couch, finally making eye contact again. They didn't need therapy, just a reset, a laugh, and maybe a better grocery delivery service. In the end, the whole mess brought them closer. Life had gone a little sideways, but love and a bit of humor set it straight again.